This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below.
Well, it's that part of the season where your priorities start to get a bit more focused. Some teams are still figuring out what they're going to be talking about for the rest of the year. Some teams are figuring out that the offseason is going to be very important for their team. And unfortunately, if you're a Browns fan, we're in that part of the season where we're talking about what you might have to do next year. Now, I think one of the things that's not really a contentious point is that the Browns are probably going to have to figure something out at quarterback. So what I want to do is bring in JP Acosta, who I think does great work on this stuff. JP, please introduce yourself. Let everybody know that you do, in fact, know of the ball.
Absolutely. Like I said, JP Acosta. I am the lead NFL writer at SB Nation. I also talk about the NFL draft. I also talk about college football. Basically, wherever football is being played, you'll probably see me tweeting about it. But I love watching football, love watching kind of the intricacies of the game and kind of how it's grown in college and NFL.
All right. So one of the trends, no matter how much the league grows, no matter what happens, there will always be a class of coaches that will say this phrase to themselves: I can fix it. When talking about a quarterback, right? He was a former first-round pick. You know, I remember the Browns doing this way back in the day with RG3 after the second knee surgery. Right? Mm-hmm. We can fix this. It is a phrase that will never die in the sports lexicon, especially when it comes to players who are drafted early. So the first part of this, I want to talk about that. We're going to play a game of can they fix it with these quarterbacks. Now, the first quarterback on here is not one that is necessarily broken, but might just be in a broken spot, right? But because of that, it's made the evaluation of them and their upside, and this is very personal to JP because you are a Jaguars fan. Trevor Lawrence. Will you ever be able to squeeze out of Trevor, given what he's experienced in his early part of his NFL career, what the dream of Trevor Lawrence coming out of Clemson was?
I think so. I think when we're talking about head coach openings, I still think Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars would be one of the more enticing options because you have a quarterback who is incredibly talented. I think we have done such a weird thing with number one overall picks at quarterback where we just expect to throw them in and be like, hey, we're going to give you Laquan Treadwell and Laviska Shenault as wide receiver one options, and you go win the game. See what happens. If you don't, then we're just going to say you're not good. I think the biggest thing with Trevor Lawrence is that he has been asked to make every single throw a tight window throw, or the margin for error for this offense is incredibly small. And when he plays hero ball, it's never an incompletion. It's always an interception. Things just go wrong at the least opportune time. And I think the biggest thing that has really stood out about this version of the Jaguars is it always feels like they're not on the same page with each other. There's receivers in the same area. There's play calling that is inconceivable at best and horrendous at its worst. The offensive line has been inconsistent. They've never really figured out how to get the ball to Brian Thomas Jr. I think he had 4 targets against the Eagles on Sunday, and I know he's nursing an injury, but he is the most explosive passing option you have right now, so you want to get him the ball. Tank Bigsby only had 8 carries, so the entire surroundings around Trevor Lawrence have been really bad, and I know that we're going to be like, oh, it's been bad for his entire career, but we still make this excuse for him, and it's like, yeah, it has been bad for his entire career. That is what Trent Baalke has put around him. I think what Trevor Lawrence, his biggest flaw is he tries to be Superman a little too much to where I think some of the comparisons between he and Justin Herbert as quarterbacks in similar situations where the environment hasn't really helped him out that much, I think they stop with that. And I think while both kind of play the game a bit robotic, I think Trevor's more likely to force a ball. He's more likely to try and be a hero sometimes, whereas Justin Herbert is going to get from 1 to 2 to 3 and check down. And that's fine. That's two completely different styles of play. But I absolutely think a good offensive coordinator can fix Trevor Lawrence and kind of elevate his play again, especially when you look around the league at some of the guys who are doing this when it comes to like Zach Robinson, Ben Johnson. I'd even throw in Drew Petting and some of what he's done in Arizona. Just those types of coordinators who are at the forefront of where the NFL is going, they can absolutely get the best out of Trevor Lawrence.
All right. Now let's talk about guys who could be available specifically in the Browns situation, right? With Kevin Stefanski, Ken Dorsey. If you're the Browns, one, is there a price you're willing to pay to get Bryce Young? And two, do you think you can fix that?
If you're the Browns, I don't know it. And I'm operating under the assumption that Kevin Stefanski and Ken Dorsey remain as play caller and head coach of the Cleveland Browns in that going into the offseason.
Yeah.
I don't think Bryce Young is a good fit for what Kevin Stefanski, maybe Ken Dorsey, but it feels like those two offenses are both drastically different. They are two completely different and two completely separate things, where Ken Dorsey is more of the spread, RPO. You think of the Bills with Josh Allen, they are spread and shred. Whereas Stefanski likes a bit more condensed formations, under center, heavy play action, which is something that Bryce Young tried to do in his rookie year, and it failed horrendously. The biggest thing for Bryce Young is I think he can be at least a league average NFL quarterback, but it requires maybe one offensive system in the NFL, and that is probably the Miami Dolphins because of how open the offense is, how many RPOs they throw in there. He is a he is a good quarterback when all his cleats are in the ground. It's 3-step drop, and he knows where he's going with the ball. I kind of worry about anything after that. So you need to get him in an offense that is heavy on yards after the catch and heavy on RPOs. I just don't think the Browns offense does that enough. And I think what Kevin Stefanski wants to do when it comes to throwing downfield off of play action, I don't think that's a good fit for Bryce Young.
Anthony Richardson. Can you fix
that would be fun. That'd be fun. I'd enjoy that. Because that's the one thing Anthony Richardson is going to do. He is still one of the better deep ball throwers in the league.
I would ask this question. Jalen Milroe in the second round, or trading like a fourth, a third, and a fifth for Anthony Richardson?
Third and a fifth for Anthony Richardson.
You do a third and fifth for Anthony Richardson?
I think Richardson is better in his pocket movement and management than Jalen Milroe is, even when they were in college. But I have a hard time believing that a kid like Anthony Richardson, who just needs reps and needs time to play the game, if you get him in an offense that does a lot of heavy play action and throws it downfield, yeah, let's see what happens. I'd be willing to take that chance.
Okay. All right. Justin Fields.
Sure. I mean, why not? I mean,
what would you be willing to pay Justin Fields for 1 year?
Ooh, for 1 year?
Yeah.
I wouldn't go anywhere into the double digits. I wouldn't go into the double digits when it comes to
Would you go standard upper tier backup, $8 to $9 million on incentives?
Yeah. I would go into the 8 to 9 area. The thing with Justin Fields is I don't think he is that much different of a passer than he was in Chicago. But the thing about Pittsburgh was they had a much better structure around him, so it looked a little better. I still worry about his process from down to down. But again, the same thing with Anthony Richardson. Justin Fields is one of the strongest arms in the league. He can still throw the ball downfield and attack off of play action. But it's just getting him to be comfortable in the pocket and getting him just to speed up the process a little bit.
Yeah. This is going to be an interesting one. Will Levis.
Oh man. If you enjoy the Jameis experience, then sure. If you are not a fan of the Jameis experience, don't do it. Do not go after Will Levis. The thing with Will Levis is you can see some of the traits of a good NFL quarterback off of play action when things are clean. But when he's under pressure, he completely falls apart. And
Mm-hmm.
and when he falls apart, it's not just a sack. It's a turnover because he's trying to do too much at that
Mm-hmm.
point. He needs an offense that will tell him you don't have to do very much. All you
He
got to do
needs
is keep the car in the middle of the road.
he
That's
needs
all
a
you have to do.
2020 Browns offense, basically.
Yes. That if you did not like Baker Mayfield and what Baker Mayfield's recklessness would bring, you don't want to do the Will Levis thing because
Yeah.
it just he is going to make he's going to make a mistake every game. He is going to make a really boneheaded decision. And you just have to live with that.
It's also interesting too, because like when we talk about these prospects, we fall into like, okay, well, their play style is similar to this guy. Um, but then like you can fall into, okay, well, Will Levis, he kind of reminds you of Baker Mayfield. But then you remember like Baker Mayfield was so much better at college football than like Will Levis was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like sometimes we don't factor it in where like people think, oh, you're just getting Baker Mayfield if you get Will Levis. Like you might get Baker Mayfield because Baker Mayfield in college was just so much better. Like he had a game against Georgia where he threw for 400 and like 4 touchdowns or something crazy like that. Like he was it. It's hard to project some of these guys that you project to be mid-tier quarterbacks from like in college to mid-tier quarterbacks in the NFL because usually those dudes who are mid-tier quarterbacks in the NFL were like really good in college.
Yeah, and like the thing with Baker Mayfield was even when he was in college, you saw he had a strong arm and he knew how to read the field when it came to outside breaking throws. That is what is translated to his
Mm-hmm.
NFL career. Will Levis, he has a strong arm and he can throw off of play action.
Yes.
Everything else outside of that is really hazy right now. And it's just because in non-dropback situations, in situations where he's under pressure, he is one of the worst quarterbacks in football. And he also cannot keep himself from doing catastrophically stupid things. So I just wonder how long a coordinator or a play caller will put up with that. Because we've seen Brian Callahan has not wanted to put up with this anymore. There have been like moments where he asked Will Levis, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like on the field. Like it's just how long would the Browns want to keep doing that, especially if they just got out of the Jameis thing?
That's my next question. We kind of talked about Justin Fields, Will Levis. In the ranking of options that you would have for like a bridge or a possible, we're gonna give this a chance to bridge. We have DTR, you got Jameis, you got Jacoby Brissett somewhere in there, right? He's like the forever bridge option. Where do you put Justin Fields? Where do you put Will Levis?
So if the scale is, I think Jacoby Brissett will obviously be one of the better options for the Browns. Familiarity with the offense, he can run that offense really well.
He just came from running it in New England, right?
Yeah, pretty
With Van
much.
Pelt.
And then I think at the bottom you have DTR, who is a little chaotic, does a little sometimes does some real stupid stuff, but the big plays look really good. Same thing with Jameis. I think Levis is closer to the DTR Jameis level. And I think Fields is like dead in the middle just because of what he adds as a runner. But when you think about what Stefanski's offense is, they don't really ask the quarterback to do too much when it comes to running the ball, but he can extend those plays. So I wonder if Fields would be the option, would you still keep around Ken Dorsey? Because that would be the merging of the offense that you'd really want. But I don't think that Fields would fit that offense a little better. I guess that's the thing. I think Fields would be the better option, but it would take some maneuvering by Stefanski and Ken Dorsey to make his offense fit best with what Justin Fields does.
Hendon Hooker.
I don't even know if Hendon Hooker is actually any good. Like we're still in like we're in like year Well, wow, man. We're in year 2, and we don't know if Hendon Hooker's any good just because Jared Goff has played great.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Do you
I
take the
mean,
gamble?
if you want to gamble on, I think he's like 27 at this point. Let me check
I think
how
he
old
is
Hooker is.
maybe 2 years younger than Jay.
Like he's 26 years old. If you want to gamble on a 26-year-old quarterback who has never started in the NFL, you do that. I would not do that at all.
Would you? What team do you think could justify spending like a late draft pick on like running that experiment?
The Raiders.
The
That is
Raiders.
absolutely a Raiders thing to do. Because what else are you gonna do? You're gonna play Aiden O'Connell again? Are you gonna play Desmond Ritter? You're just getting all the same types of quarterbacks. You might as well just add Hendon Hooker.
Just for the LOL. Kenny Pickett.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. He has been outplayed by Tanner McKee for the Eagles' backup spot. So
McKee's ass.
I would not do that at all.
How much? What would you have to get in a trade to be like, all right, I'll take Kenny Pickett with it?
Oh man, you would have to put another player in there. Another player, or you got to send another draft pick. You know, it can't just be Kenny Pickett, and it can't just be Kenny Pickett. You're not going to just give me Kenny Pickett and expect to get away with it. You got to give me some picks. You got to give me some capital. I'll even do cash considerations at this point, like the NBA.
Is he still on the active roster for Philly? I feel like we would have found out, right, if he got cut, right?
We would have figured out if he was cut. I don't know if he's on the practice squad or not. Maybe.
Because I don't remember him being the backup.
Let's see. On the active roster, he and Tanner McKee are both on the active roster.
They both make the 48?
They both make the 48. Or I think last week or against the Jags, one of them was the emergency quarterback.
All right.
So let me check just to make sure.
And once we entered Hendon Hooker, I want to make this clear to the audience. We are not in, oh, he could be the starter, let's give him a try, right? Like that is Anthony Richardson, Justin Fields, Bryce Young. Like, okay, we could try this as a bridge, low cost, high draft. He was a high draft pick thing. We are now in a, does he replace DTR as like let's see, like, you know, kind of like how the Browns had.
Just punt and see what happens in 2026. Tanner McKee was the third quarterback.
Not worth evaluating, right?
Yeah. This is not going to be a year where you try and see if anything's real or not. But Tanner McKee was the emergency third quarterback. And if I'm honest, I would much rather trade for Tanner McKee than I would Kenny Pickett.
Wow. Malik Willis. Well, Malik Wills.
I mean, sure. If you can bring Matt LaFleur with you, if we think that Kevin Stefanski is as good of a play caller as he is, sure, why not? But the biggest issue with Willis is the same issue that it is with Fields, and it's been the same issue with the Browns starting quarterback in week 1, which is he is much more of a runner, plays with more RPOs in his offense, very shotgun based. I don't know if that meshes well with what Stefanski wants to do, but if you can bring Matt LaFleur with you, or if you could kind of ask Matt LaFleur like how you got him involved here and how you made it work, sure, why not?
Okay, I got a double question. Rank these guys as prospects as they came out of college, right?
Okay.
Hendon Hooker, Kenny Pickett, Malik Wills. I cannot believe I'm blanking on his name. He is super famous, Texas quarterback.
Ellinger?
No. He plays for Texas right now.
Oh, Ewers,
Quinn Ewers, and Jalen Milroe.
Oh man. I think I would
Hold
go.
on. Let me add 2 more names to this. Zach Wilson, Cam Ward, Trey Lance, Mac Jones.
Okay. As prospects, I'm still trying to get a good feel for some of the guys, obviously, in the draft this year. But as prospects, I was really high on Trey Lance. So I guess I would say Lance. Um, um, I'm gonna say Ward and Wilson are kind of in the same area.
Wilson was significantly younger.
Yes, that's the thing. Wilson
Yeah.
was young.
I believe. Are they the same age?
I
Because Wilson's
think
not
at
that
this
old,
point,
right?
no, I don't think Wilson's that old. Let
Yeah.
me see.
I think Wilson might be 26, 25.
Wilson's 25.
Uh-huh. So
So
he's 2
I
years.
think, yeah, like Ward and Wilson are in the same area. And then I go Milrow, uh, Willis, mm, uh, then from there, you got the Hendon Hooker, the Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett and Curtis Work both come out in 2022. Who you take over?
Curtis Rourke. I love Curtis Rourke, man. I think Curtis Rourke is awesome.
We're definitely going to get into some Curtis Work talk once we get into the draft preview. But basically, all right, so now we're Zach Wilson. What would be more preferable for you? Drafting a quarterback in the 3rd round or seeing what it takes to get Zach Wilson off Denver?
I would absolutely draft a quarterback in the 3rd round.
Okay.
I would not want to do that Zach Wilson thing all over again.
Same option with Trey Lance.
Draft a guy. Draft a guy. As high as I was on Trey Lance, at this point, if he cannot beat out Cooper Rush to be QB2, it might be over.
That's a fair assessment.
If we get to like Sunday, or if we get to like next Sunday, and the Cowboys obviously don't have Dak, and Cooper Rush is starting, yeah, I think that it's. I mean, what else do you want to say? You couldn't beat out Cooper Rush as QB2 for the Cowboys, so I want to believe, but there's so much you're telling me not to.
All right. Mac Jones. I'm put together a trio of options here because I just saw your face when I said Mac Jones. All right. Mac Jones for free. Or you have to take a quarterback in the 3rd round, or you just basically punt until 2026.
I would punt so quickly. I'll go with a vet and just be like, hey man, screw it. We're in for 2026 now. I don't know what Mac Jones would bring you.
Mac Jones or signing Mitchell Trubisky? And are they secretly the same exact thing?
I think they're kind of the same thing. I think Trubisky's a little bit more athletic, but it's the same process. You sign Mac Jones for free, you're basically punting on your upcoming season. I don't think he is very good. I think his arm isn't strong enough, and he's also is too scared to play under pressure. It is if your option at this point in the offseason is Mac Jones or Mitchell Trubisky, you might as well punt and just go in knowing you're looking for a quarterback the next year.
In your eyes, is there a quarterback that you see out there, maybe in a situation where they're going to be available soon, or as a backup, or something like that? Do you think that there is a chance that this player could have a similar resurgence to what we've seen with GENO or what we're seeing right now with Sam Darnold?
I mean, obviously, I think the choice here would be Justin Fields. I think he requires a little bit more working with in terms of what works within the offense. Outside of that, I don't really know. I guess I would like to at least see some reps of Trey Lance in a live game situation. But again, just like I said, if it's not working and you're the QB3 and you can't beat out Cooper Rush, I don't know if it's ever going to work like that. We've seen Sam Howell. I don't think I need to see any more of Sam Howell to believe that he can be anything more than a bridge. But I mean, the pickings are real slim. And I think that's where we've gotten to at quarterbacks, where it's like you're either one of like the 10 best guys in the league, or it's looking kind of shaky.
You know what I compare it to? I was talking about it. I was like, what if like the NBA just took away the 3-point line? Right? It's kind of how it feels like with these quarterbacks, because you had a lot of them. I think Deshaun Watson's probably one of them, got hit with this guy real used to taking threes, right? Real used to building their game around that. And then all of a sudden, because, you know, there is no like tangible 3-point line in the NFL, it can just change. The game changes. It gets harder. And all of a sudden, a lot of these dudes that were able to live off that, they're not able to live off that anymore. And all of a sudden it becomes a lot harder. We're back in like 2000 where we're like, oh, there's like 10 teams with quarterbacks. Like, right? Like, and then like, well, of the 15 teams with quarterback, there's like 7 of them that you actually want to have quarterback your team, right? So, yeah. And the interesting thing with Trey Lance to me too is like, it's not just that he hasn't had success, it's where he hasn't had success, which concerns me too, because it's like the argument with Brock Purdy is that a lot is supporting him. And I think sometimes it goes a bit overboard, but I think it's the general thesis is correct there. And the argument with Dak is that, you know, he's getting a lot of support there at times. And it's like he goes in there, he throws 4 interceptions in the preseason game, and you just feel like, wow. Like,
yeah, it's like if all support is here, then how come you aren't getting any of the support? It's a really weird thing.
And I think Bomani brings up this great point where he's talking about, he's like, hey, he needs to play football, but he clearly can't play NFL football, right? Like, I think that's kind of, and that's kind of like this twilight zone where I think a lot of quarterbacks end up in.
Yeah, I think the NFL would largely benefit from a minor league. Like, if you send a quarterback down to like AAA just to get reps, that would make a lot of sense. But there is no AAA in the NFL. So either you're getting reps live in the game or you're just sitting there waiting for your turn. I think obviously Jordan Love might be the dream for every team, but not every team has an Aaron Rodgers. Not every team has a Matt LaFleur. So it's kind of a tough spot to find yourself in between wanting to win now and wanting to get reps for your young quarterback. But I think a lot of it has to do with coaching and front offices not getting enough time to truly build what they want. And just that idea of you win now. You draft a rookie quarterback, you go win now. CJ Stroud, drafted rookie quarterback, went and won now. Andrew Luck got drafted, won now. But not all those are the same. Like, it's a very case-by-case basis. I actually think one of the quarterbacks I might as well, like, if you're taking a flyer on anybody, I mean, Spencer Rattler would be a guy I'll take a flyer on him if he ends up not being on the Saints anymore. He actually looks like he might end up being like the next quarterback for the Saints after whatever happens with them happens. I mean, I'm still curious on what happens.
Spencer Rattler, most impressive guy at the Senior Bowl. Just like to point that out.
That's right. That's right. I'm still curious on what ends up happening with Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix. That might end up being the Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers thing, but Jordan Love and Michael Penix are actually the same age right now. I mean, from there, you're getting into, again, you're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here in terms of quarterbacks that you really want to at least give a shot to.
If you had a bridge for 2 years, Jameis, Joe Flacco, Justin Fields, who are you going with?
A bridge for 2 years? Give me Joe Flacco. Because I know that there's some things that Joe Flacco just can do well, and there's some things he is horrible at. And I know for like a couple games, if he can catch a heater, then it'll look good. But I know that when he's off, it'll look horrendous. I think the thing with Fields, I think I'd rank them Flacco, Fields, Jameis, because Jameis is so high variance. But I think Fields' youth and, again, his ability to run, it's real close between him and Joe Flacco. But I at least know Joe's going to do one thing well, and that is throw the ball deep off play action.
Yeah, the only thing that scares me off of Joe Flacco is like all them other years between Baltimore and Cleveland last year.
Mhm.
Like, where it's like, yeah, if he could be the version he was in Cleveland and what he showed at the beginning of this Indianapolis run, then I think that there is something there. But there's also like a good chunk of evidence where you're like, hey, he gets worse.
It's not good.
So
not good at all.
Right.
It's,
we're like, what? Who did they take in that draft? Did they take? That wasn't Paxton Lynch while he was over there. That was
no. I think it might have been Paxton Lynch. Let me see.
No, it was Drew Lock. Like they.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah,
it was.
they drove him to Drew Lock. He drove him to Drew Lock there, right? Like it was like. That's the only thing with Joe Flacco where I'm like, what happens? Like if you really do commit to that for a season, because the last time a team has committed to it, he was far younger and it was ugly. So that's the only issue I have with him. I mean, Jameis, we know what's going to happen with Jameis again. 3 touchdowns, definitely possible. 3 interceptions, always possible.
You play that game.
He is the quarterback that gives all 22 players on the field a chance to win.
You enter the Jameis zone when you play Jameis, and it might not look good. It actually definitely will not look good. But sometimes those plays end up in your favor. Again, that game against the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
If any of those Ravens players could catch, then Jameis ends with like 3 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. But the Chargers caught their interceptions, or at least like 3 of the 4 that he tried to throw. So it's just you play that game. And I even think with Joe Flacco a little bit, you play that game. But I know Joe Flacco's a little less variant than a guy like Jameis, but overall, I think Fields might be the best option if you're a team that doesn't have a young quarterback and just wants to see what you got. But if you're a team that already has a young quarterback that you drafted, I think I would go Flacco.
You go Flacco? All right.